I was born in Zimbabwe in a town called Kwekwe. Yeah. Well, I never lived there, to be fair, in Kwekwe, but I grew up in Harare, and it was, I think, when I look back on my life, that's the best time I ever had growing up in Zimbabwe. I had the best primary school and high school education, and the sporting activities and everything, friends, family. It was absolutely amazing, and I always look back on it and think about it regularly, to be honest. And yeah, I really cherish my childhood and growing up in Zimbabwe. I loved every second of it. Yeah, I've got two brothers and a sister. I'm second born. My parents, Samuel and Daisy, the best parents a child can have, because they gave us the opportunity to have access to a lot of things that that most kids didn't get access to. Mm-hmm. Not that I'm saying that's good, that's a good thing, but it was just nice that our parents were able to support us and support our dreams and our ambitions when we were from a very young age. My dad worked for Standard Chartered Bank. My mom was a housewife, as they called them back then. And so we had a very supportive family upbringing. And us as the children were very, very close in growing up. But most of my time was spent at boarding school. Yeah, so I was in boarding school, so which was absolutely amazing. I think that shaped me to be the person that I am today, the boarding school experience, which I loved to bits, yeah. I was educated in English. Zimbabwe, the main language, or the national language, is English. Obviously, we've got our own dialects or languages, or more. I speak Shona. That's the language within our household. But in school or business and anything in Zimbabwe, the national main language is English. So yeah, we're taught in English, and my English is far better than my Shona. Yeah, so yeah, most of my friends still laugh at me when I speak Shona or try to read Shona. So I'm struggling, but I'm getting there. It was a very difficult decision to come to the UK, but not to leave Zimbabwe. Because when I finished A levels, most of my friends went to Australia, which I was studying with my A levels. So I really wanted to go to Australia, but my parents, since my dad worked for Standard Chartered Bank, he used to visit London a lot because it's a British bank, it's a London bank. So he was always in love with London or UK itself. So yeah, we got kind of pushed to come to the United Kingdom, but it was all based on education. So I came to the UK for university. That's the reason I came to the UK initially. I did business studies undergraduate, and then I did a master's in international business. Yes, I would say it did, because one was starting a whole new life. I was leaving my parents behind. Obviously all my friends were going somewhere else, so it was like going to be a whole new step, a whole new world for me, really, trying to find my way. But I think as much as I had the anxiety of thinking, what's this going to be like, on the flight here to the UK, my parents came with me. So that was brilliant. It was a very supportive mate. And then we got to the university. I didn't stay on campus. They got me a flat. My mom stayed for about 3 weeks, so I had that support. That's why I'm really thankful for my parents, because I had that support. But the anxiety was there about, what's this world going to be like? Because all I knew about the UK was watching things like Keeping Up Appearances and stuff like that on TV. I didn't know much else, because there was no one else to talk to in terms of friends or things like that. So there was a lot of anxiety when it was coming, but my experience of being in boarding school, kind of like, because you're used to being away from parents, away from home. So I think that also put me in good stead. It was cold. It was cold. We landed at Heathrow, and it was freezing, because it was freezing from a person who's coming from Africa, from Zimbabwe. It was around, if I forget the dates correctly, it was in April time when I landed. So for me, it was cold. I felt really cold. But at the same time, I was just amazed, because it was the first time seeing a massive airport So it was, as much as I was cold in terms of the weather, when we got out, I was a bit frightened because I'd heard stories of people being turned away, even if they had a visa or something like that. Maybe there was a mistake with paperwork or things. You hear all these stories. So there was a lot of anxiety and a lot of, just an uneasiness as well that was on me at that moment. So I think that probably contributed to feeling even colder. But it was a mixture of different emotions. I was excited as well, because that's when I kind of accepted that, listen, it's not going to be Australia, it's going to be the United Kingdom. So yes, a lot of emotions, but weather-wise, I felt cold, and the anxiety as well in terms of all the different things that was coming up. I couldn't, when the immigration person asked for my passport, he had to ask it 3 times for me to realize that he wanted my passport, although I could clearly hear what he was saying. But it was just, I was just taken aback. Yeah, I think the major barriers that I faced, it's all, so far my story has sounded very rosy. But there was a period when 2010, because I came to UK to 2004, but around 2010 to 12, I went through a very difficult personal situation, and I found myself not having the right to be in the UK. I found myself having to go to the Home Office, my parents as well, having in a very difficult situation back home, that I had to distance myself from my parents as well. So during that period, whereby I was in this no man's land, as it's called, I found it very difficult in terms of, trying to find things to do, to wake up in the morning, going through a lot of depression. My partner, Tabith, her having to go to work and support the both of us, having nowhere to live, from moving from friends' houses, as someone who had been really settled in the United Kingdom to an extent. That period that I went through, I found out that, a lot of people that we've got nowhere to turn to. There are a lot of organizations out there that help you process from the paperwork and application side of things, but nothing that helps you in terms of your day-to-day, your when you wake up in the morning to when you go to bed, that addresses your mental well-being, that addresses your physical well-being, or someone that you can talk to emotionally. I found that there was a gap that was there that I went through myself, and other people that I started communicating with, meeting, might be from church, might be from within the community that you bump into, as someone that was well educated to an extent, if I can say that. A lot of people come to you wanting support for, calling the council for housing or calling bills or things like that. So you started making those connections within the community and realizing that there are a lot of people that were going through what I've gone through. And it's like, we need to do something about this. So that's how everything human rights came about, from myself living that situation, as well as friends and family who are now board members or volunteers of Everything Human Rights, who had also gone through all those different situations and come up the other side strongly, but are thinking, guys, we need to do something about this because we've gone through it. We were there for one another. Let's be there for people beyond just ourselves. Everything Human Rights is an African diaspora organization that works to support ethnic minorities when it comes to settling in and making a home within Leigh or Wigan Borough or across Greater Manchester, because we've grown that far now. It's all about tackling the barriers that people face when it comes to just making a normal life and settling in successfully within a community. So anything to do with community integration, community cohesion, social isolation, access or to have the knowledge of services that are available to them. So it's the whole package where we offer projects that support people from that aspect and to be able to successfully settle as an individual or as families within the community and giving back ultimately. because the whole idea is, as much as the support is there, it's also about giving back within the community, of which people can do that in so many different ways. Some of the projects that we currently run, we've got a youth project which we run in partnership with Wigan Council called Global Friends, which is a targeted group for ethnic minority young people aged 10 to 16, where we run a weekly youth club to support them. We've also got a homework club that supports young people that are preparing to write exams, so maybe O-level, A-level exams. And then at the same time, we've got a women's group where we have coffee mornings every Wednesday between 10 and 12 p.m., where single moms or women that are just, even if they're at work and they're on their break, they can connect online and then just have a chat about different things that are affecting them and share their experiences, as well as we invite guests, might be elected council members or Wigan council officers or just business people or people that just, so it's like a platform for supporting one another. And then we have a monthly men's barbecue, my favorite, where men come together and just have a barbecue just to share the same thing, just like the women's group does, where it's about just sharing things and enjoying football matches and just having a laugh, but creating a community network so that we support the whole family package. It's not just young people or women or men, it's supporting families as a whole unit, because there's no point focusing on just young people and then you don't support the parents, or just supporting parents without the young people, because at the end of the day, there are many barriers that or complications that people face within families, and we want to be there to support that. I think they're the same there's the same barriers to an extent, but with different challenges of those barriers, if I can use my English correctly there, in the sense that obviously what I went through was isolation, for example, right? Whereby you've got no access to work or to public funds, for example. So you're sitting at home, you've got nothing to do, and when everyone else out there that's next door neighbors are leaving in the morning and coming back, and you're just sitting. And then right now, people still face the same situation, except that back then there were more organizations like Everything Humans, because we hadn't yet started. So there were more organizations across Wigan Borough that you could go to, whereas now they are not in the few organizations. So it's the same barriers of isolation, but the challenges in terms of resolving that or tackling that barrier are greater now than they were 10, 15 years ago that I went through. So I would say, so overall, I think it's more difficult now to tackle those barriers because of those support networks, the availability of services, or it might be just even funding for those organizations that were doing those services and supporting people who were like me back then. They don't have the same access now. So the level of support that's out there now is much less. What I'm most proud of in my work with Everything Human Rights is the project that we ran during COVID. I think the work that Everything Human Rights did during COVID, for me, is what I'm most proud of. We worked in collaborations with many organizations, such as like Lee Film Society, which is an amazing local organization in Lee. And it was an orange bag of sunshine. That's what the project, like, it got a name, just when you just bump into a name. I think Elizabeth Costello, was one of the directors and founders of Lee Film Society, just bumped into that name because they had these little orange bags where they would put DVDs and a packet of sweets and popcorn sometimes. And then during COVID, because the people we supported, obviously, they probably don't have internet, so they couldn't watch your Netflix, your Amazons, so they were really isolated, and obviously locked down, you couldn't travel, you couldn't leave the house. So that project where we partnered with the Lee Film Society to ensure that people that were isolated due to government regulations had to be supported, and that project, we supported over 150 families, And then these bags were delivered on it was a weekly to 2 weekly periods. So you'd be like, you'd be going around dropping a bag at the door, and you walk away, and then people open the door, they pick it up, and then you wave, and then the kids and the families that will cry for that, because they got that support. And as well as we partnered with organizations in Bolton, shops, Asian shops, African shops, where we're getting food. So these organizations were donating food, and we'll go around, pick up that food, and go around dropping them off to asylum seekers and refugees who couldn't afford or who had no access to these things. So that little bag, the orange bag of sunshine with the food and dropping off, I think for me till this day, I think there's no project that I'm more proud of than that one, because it was a time where the nation or people just needed that support. People needed to come together, and organizations collaborated to deliver that. And we're at the center of that for supporting asylum seekers and refugees who were isolated. Obviously, the orange bag of sunshine was wider than just asylum seekers and refugees. Lee Film Society dealt with supporting the whole community at large, but we managed to work with them to focus on people that we support as well, and that was a project that I'm so proud of, to be honest with you. And I still think about it and talk about it today. I get goosebumps thinking about it. The changes I would like to see across Wigan Borough for migrant communities is more targeted work. The borough is becoming more diverse. There's a larger migrant community that's growing within Lee and Wigan. When you're walking down the town centres or the high streets, you can see that. But I feel like more targeted work when it comes to supporting them settle. Because I know that's what we focus on as Everything Human Rights, but we're only a small organization. So more collaborative work, more support from bigger organizations or businesses or from the council, which we work brilliantly with at the moment. But I just think that there's much more that can still be done. Because with the success of people settling in within a community means the best comes out faster, and people contribute more to the local community because it feels more like home. So it's how we get people faster from the point of feeling like a stranger, like I felt when all those years ago when I arrived, to making a place feel like home, like I feel now about Lee and Wigan. We want to shorten that gap, and we do that by working together to make people feel more at home, by tackling those barriers that they face on a day-to-day basis. And I think we can work faster and achieve that when we work together.